Shalom, everyone, and welcome to Coffee and Connection, week 195. I hope everyone is doing well, that you're feeling well, that you're rehydrated, getting started on your laundry, whatever it is, right? Even if you're Sparty, it means you probably still have all your laundry juice in Shabbos. So we're all in a boat here of laundry piles. And I hope you're all doing well. And I really was feeling after the last week, and especially after Tisha B'Av, I think we can, you'll let me know, I guess anyone here, you're connecting it ready to this idea that very often when we take time, and we talked about this last week as well, when we take time to think about what's missing, when we take time to think about our pain, when we take time to think about what's lacking in the world, we're going to be left, whether we're doing it on a national level, whether we're doing it on a personal level, whether we're doing it on our house, like in our home, our family, we're often left with like a laundry list, of like desires and things that we want and things that are causing us pain. And maybe even things that we really feel should be different, right? Things that we just wish people would do, or we just wish we could change. And so many feelings of like, if only, if only, if only. And then it can be very quickly turn it into a feeling of overwhelm, of pain, of feeling stuck, of confusion. Like, yeah, but how do I make this happen? Yeah, but what's my place in all of this? Or what can I even do? And what do we do with that? Because we can be looking at the world or looking at our situation, looking at our home, and have clarity over what's not working, have clarity over what needs to be fixed, have clarity over what's not the way we would like it to be, the way we think it should be, what should be different. And yet, how do we change that? What do we do about that without feeling frustrated, angry, resentful, sad, depressed, confused, and just stuck, right? And it's first of all important to acknowledge. I think the first step is always to acknowledge how normal it is to feel this way, how normal it is to feel that our desire of what we want to there to be change in, and what even we want to change, is going to be bigger than what we can actually change, what we feel we can actually have an effect on, because our, as Stephen Covey explains, our circle of concern is bigger than our circle of influence, right? What we actually have influence on, what we can actually control, is much smaller than what we have interest in, what we care about, right? And I think that's the first thing to acknowledge, is to recognize that yes, I care about a lot of things and a lot of people, and there's a lot that I feel connected to and that I have hopes and dreams for. And that's going to be bigger than what I actually can control. And that doesn't just mean that, and I guess we'll get into this in a moment. I want to talk more about the fact that it's not just like because I can't control, what happens across the world, or I can't control what other people are doing. It even means like in my own vicinity, right? Like we have to recognize that what we want to be able to influence, what we want to be able to control, the things that are of interest to us, of concern, of caring, is always going to be a bigger circle than what we actually have control or influence on. And that doesn't make us weak. It doesn't make us small. It doesn't make us incapable. It makes us human. It makes us caring people, right? We don't just care about ourselves. We don't just care about what's in our, necessarily what we say in Hebrew, our Daled Amo, right? Like our own vicinity. We care. We care about more than we, can even have any control over, right? Because we do care about the greater world. We do care about the greater picture. That makes us caring people, right? Kol Yisrael arevim zeh lezeh. We care about every Jew, and yet we know that we don't interact with or get to have influence over or get to control definitely or even get to like deal with everything that every person is dealing with. And I think that, that's a very first step to acknowledge. Sorry, I'm just looking for my here. They're over here. That's the first thing that we just get to acknowledge. It doesn't make us weak that we can't control everything that we care about. It makes us human. It makes us caring people. That's the first thing. Then I think the next step is to also acknowledge that even in our own vicinity, there is a lot that we can care about and feel like we maybe even tell ourselves we should be able to control. And then we have to really ask ourselves the question, do I actually have control over this? Is this actually something I can control? See, I think especially in our families, that's where that becomes a very important question to ask ourselves because we can want to control things. We can want to influence things. We can feel like we even should be able to control it. Maybe we even had some education that taught us that it's our job to control it or them or him, whether that's our husbands, our children, our like, you can even stop there, but it can even go even further where we may feel like I should be able to control this. They should listen to me. I should be able to stop them or get them but then the real question becomes, and can I? Can I? Just because I tell someone something 10 times, are they going to listen to what I say? Just because I think I know what someone else should do, is that really what is best for them? Is this actually helping the situation or is it hurting the situation when I keep trying to control it? So we also need to look at that piece, right? Even the things that we're telling ourselves we should be able to control. And then we're trying and trying and trying and feeling frustrated when we're not able to control it. That's when we get to check in with ourselves like, is this really something, no matter how hard I try, that it really is in my control? Or is it something that I have to let go of? Now, I'm not going to talk about like, I am going to talk about that what we're not saying here, what I'm not going to say is just give up. That's, when I talk a lot about the concept of acceptance, and people really have a misunderstanding of what that term means, especially in the work that I do here. Acceptance doesn't mean I don't care, I give up, I like surrender to this, like, no, I just surrender. I wave a white flag, like, I don't care. That's not what acceptance is. Acceptance, and that's really what we're talking about here. Acceptance is the ability to acknowledge and bring clarity to what is so that then I can see, okay, so what can I do? What is in my control, right? Where do I have what we could use the word influence, or what choices can I make? How do I deal with the situation? If I'm always trying to change it and I'm fighting it and I'm trying to, or I'm getting upset that it's true, I'm just resisting the reality. I'm just resisting what is, as opposed to acknowledging what is so that then I can say, okay, so now what can I do? What is in my control? What is it that I actually want and what can I do to create that? Right? So then we can move into looking at, okay, so what can I do? And with this, I want to also address another piece of this, which is that very often when we're looking at what we want to create, we can get very stuck at looking at what other people should do. If only he would, if only she would, if only they would, whoever the they is in the situation that you want to change. We can get very focused on, oh, if only those people would do this and everything would be okay. If only he would act like this, then we would be okay. If only this situation was different. And what that's doing, although it can create, like, you can feel very clear about it, that really creates that feeling of being stuck because you're just waiting. You're waiting for someone else. You're waiting. You have no control over the situation. And then we go back to number two, where, like, even if you feel like, oh, I could make them do it, really? Can you? Is it number one, outside of your sphere of influence? And number two, even if you think like it is inside your sphere of influence, does it really do anything when you try to control it? So then what we really get to do is make a very important internal shift and get curious. Okay, so what is my piece here? What can I do here? Right? What is it that I have? What do I have control over? What is it that I want? Who can I be to create that shift? Right? Because we can be so focused on what everyone else can do. And we might be right. It might be true. If only he would, I don't know, let's throw an example. If only he would stop yelling, if only she would listen to you, if only they would, act nicely to each other, then everything would be great. But that's not in your control. You can't make them do that. So then, and it may be very true that your relationship would be better if he stopped yelling, that your kids would be happier if they listened to you. Maybe that's true. And yet, what you get curious, okay, I can't make him do that. But rather than sitting here and waiting for him to figure that out, waiting for her to figure it out, waiting for them to figure out, right? Then the question becomes, okay, so then what what is in my control? Basically, someone's asking here, what if there's nothing you can do? Sometimes you can't. Here's the thing we get to accept, there's nothing I can do to change someone else. All I can do is look at, okay, what is it that I want? And what can I do to bring that into the situation? What can I do? And it's not always so clear. That's like one of my favorite things to help women really see for themselves is like, what can I do in this situation? Right? What really is in my power? Sometimes we can't see it because we're so focused on the other person. And again, I'm not negating that the other person, it would really be very good if they would change that. Right? We all have our stuff to work on, and we all have what we're bringing to the world and bringing to our relationships that's not ideal. We can't make them do that. So then the question becomes, okay, what is it that I want, and what can I do to create that? Sometimes all we can do is bring acceptance. We talked about what acceptance is. Acceptance isn't giving up, acceptance is acknowledging this is the truth. Now, what is it now that I accept that? What can I do? Right? How do I want to handle this? Who do I want to be in this situation? Where can I find my part in this? Right? Sometimes it's looking at what is it that I want from somebody else? How can I make sure that I'm living into that, that I'm being in integrity in this situation? Sometimes it's okay, if this is the reality of the situation, how do I want to handle this? Right? How do I want, or what piece do I even maybe have in that dynamic? We always have something in our control because we always control who we are being. We always control the way we are reacting to something. Really, that's all we control. The only thing we ever control is, who am I being? How am I reacting to this situation? What am I bringing forth into this? Am I living into my values? Am I living into my desire, or am I living into my fears? Am I trying to control? Am I getting upset? Am I getting frustrated? Am I bringing resentment? Am I getting angry because things are not the way I think they should be? Which is usually only going to make the situation worse, as much as we think it's going to help the situation. And when we can shift our perspective into, okay, what is it that I want? What is it that's important? Now, what can I do to bring that? How can I be that? How can I create that? Then we're stepping into what we can control. That's all we have. Hakol biyadei shamayim. Everything is outside of our control. Everything is in God's hands. Chutz meyirat shamayim. Everything, hakol miyadei shamayim, chutz meyirat shamayim, except for our own yirat shamayim, which basically means our own choices, the way we are going to act. That's it. That's all we have. That's all Hashem asks of us. We have to remember, sometimes we're thinking like I should be able to control all of this and I should be able to change all of this, because isn't that what, like, we get into this thinking like as if that's our job, as if that's our role. And Hashem is telling us very clearly our role is only to be in control of ourselves, and who am I being, and how am I dealing with this situation, and who am I looking at, and who am I blaming, and who am I judging, and what choices am I making. All we can focus on is ourselves. So I'm really going to invite you all right now to think about for a moment. You could get big, you could get small, like over Tisha B'Av, or even just over today, something that you got upset about, something that you were feeling is missing, something that you were feeling sad about. And ask yourself, look at, like, okay, what am I trying to control that's outside my sphere of control, my sphere of influence, right? It might be my sphere of concern, but it's outside my sphere of control. And or what am I who am I trying to control in my own family, or who am I blaming, right? Who am I looking at and saying, if only you would, if only you could, you should. Be real with yourself. Like, who are you putting the blame on? Who are you putting the should on? Who are you focusing on? And then get curious and ask yourself that question. What's my control in this situation? If I turn the lens around and focus on myself for just a moment, don't blame yourself for other people's choices. You're not responsible for other people's actions. You're not responsible for all the pain in the world. You're not responsible for the way people treat you. You're not responsible for the choices people make. That's their responsibility. And when you turn the lens to yourself to get curious, what can I do about this situation? How can what choices can I make? What's in my control to be able to influence the situation, to be able to bring my values and my desires into this situation, as that is all Hashem wants from us. And when we focus on that, this is Stephen Covey talks about this also. I need to quote my sources. When we focus, and I know there's a Jewish source as well. It's just I can't access it right now, but I know that Jewish sources talk about this as well. The more you focus on what you can control, the more your influence, not your control, but your influence radiates outward into your circle of concern, right? But it all starts by focusing, and it continues. It's all about focusing on what you can control, which will always and only be yourself, your perspective, your actions, your choices, your acceptance, what you're choosing to accept, and how you act in response. So I really invite you to think about that for yourself. It's not an easy exercise to do. I am very much challenging you today. It's not an easy exercise to do. It can take a lot of introspection. It takes a lot of letting go of, our ego sometimes. It takes a lot of shifting the lens. And sometimes we can be in a place of there's nothing here that I can control and it's all about acceptance. And sometimes it's okay. I may be shooting on a whole other group of people. Let me just make sure that I'm living in the integrity of what I want them to be doing and allowing ourselves to be real within ourselves. What matters to me most and how can I make sure that I'm living into that? Is that resonating? So, if you're committing yourself to doing the exercise, just put a yes in the chat, a me, that you're going to do it, that you're going to be real with yourself, you're going to do some of that introspection. Um, how does this apply when I'm blaming others for not focusing or connecting with what I'm saying when I speak to them? It can apply to really looking at, I'll just throw out some examples. It may be, am I connecting with myself? So that I can be sure that I'm really saying what's actually real, right? Sometimes we're not connecting with what we really want, so we're saying things that we want people to hear, but it doesn't feel authentic to them. So we have to, am I connecting with myself? Am I sharing it in a way that, I'm speaking in a way that is within my values that makes it easier for other people to hear me? Am I trying to control whether they hear me instead of, speaking in integrity and then giving them the permission to, listen or not? It's up to them. I can't control whether or not they listen to me. Okay. Just a few examples there. So just to get your mind thinking, right? Plenty to think about. Thank you. You're so welcome. I remember one woman that I worked with who was very focused on respect, being respectful. And she was, I'm going to respect my husband and I'm respecting. And she was so focused on being respectful to her husband. And she couldn't figure out why he wasn't being respectful to her. For years, she's working on it. She's working on it. She came to me. She's like, I don't understand. I'm being so super duper respectful of my husband, and he's just not respectful of me. And what we figured out was that in all the respect she was giving to her husband, what she had forgotten to do was also be respectful to herself and honor herself and make sure that she was taking care of herself. And I mean, like, even like acknowledging that there were ways that, how she wanted to be, what she was allowing herself to receive and how she was being spoken to. Was she letting go of her own values in order to be respectful and not respecting herself? Was she giving permission to be treated a certain way? Right. So, yeah, she was being respectful to him, but she wasn't respecting herself. And when she turned the lens around and started really respecting herself, her husband felt her respect of him more, and he started treating her with the respect that she wanted, right? And then she felt that respect that she was working so hard to create. So it's a mirror. We have to, if there's something that's missing, we always want to turn around and see, like, what's missing in me, not in a blaming way. It's not, oh, that other person's treating me this way, it's my fault. No, that's their responsibility. We get to look to see, how can I create what it is that I feel is missing in my life. Okay. So what happens if we feel that someone is controlling something that is in my boundaries, but I can't do anything because they're in my life and I'm having a very hard time letting go of resentment and judgment? No, here's the thing about boundaries, and we can talk about this another time, but boundaries are not for other people to respect, they're for you to respect. You get to set your boundary of how you will be treated, what you will accept, and how you will allow yourself to be treated. So if someone is coming into your boundary, and this is not a blame or shame, we get to acknowledge, how am I letting somebody treat me a certain way? How am I in what way am I accepting it? We're very used to blaming others, for how they're treating us. And we get to acknowledge, how am I allowing this? What can I do differently to set that clear boundary of, how I want to be treated. And you're definitely welcome to reach out if you have more questions about this. If anyone's looking for more guidance, like how do I turn that lens around? How can I create more what it is that I want to create? How can I be, empowered to create what I want to create instead of waiting for somebody else to do it? I definitely encourage you to reach out and let's talk about it. Let's look at it as there really is. I stand in my mission to empower you and to help women really understand that there is that we always have that piece of control. We always have that piece of control over what ourselves and what we're creating and what we're living in and what we are the reality that we're living in, not as a blame, as a taking ownership and taking ownership really of how do I create what it is that I want to create instead of waiting for someone else to create it. Sometimes what happens is women say, I'm waiting for Hashem. If Hashem wants things to be better, it'll be better. And I've talked about that a lot that, Hashem often is giving, wait, like, not that Hashem is waiting for us, but that Hashem wants us to make these things happen. So let's really think about how we can not just recognize what's missing as we did over the last week, but now to look to see moving forward, how can I create what it is that I want and what is in my control? And there is so much. As soon as we turn that lens around, we step into being empowered, and there's so much we can control. And if you're feeling stuck, like, okay, how do I apply this to this situation? Reach out. Let's look at it and make sure that you have the clear steps to go forward. Okay, ladies, thank you all for being here. Next week, we will not be having coffee and connection, but because live. I have a big simcha, Baruch Hashem, and the week is very busy, but I am excited to share with you other things that you'll be able to listen to, other ways that we can stay connected over that time. So keep check your inbox, and I'll keep you posted on all of that. And I look forward to seeing you on our next session. And until then, may we all be blessed to live, love, and be loved with all our hearts. Goodbye for now.